Could the Miami Heat trade Andrew Wiggins to the Los Angeles Lakers this offseason? Lakers beat reporter Jovan Buha labeled Wiggins as an ideal trade target for the Lakers, and with the Heat definitely being open to moving Wiggins this offseason, I feel like this could be a pairing for both sides that make a lot of sense. Before we talk more about the trade, I do want to get a temperature check on Heat fans regarding Andrew Wiggins. Do you want the Heat to trade away Wiggins this offseason? Type T if you want to trade him. Type K if you want to keep him. Let's get into the show now. With Andrew Wiggins, I think it's a very interesting and divisive topic potentially. I am not going to give away Andrew Wiggins for nothing. But I do think the fit with Wiggins in Miami did not go as planned. And I could see Pat Riley and company saying, all right, we got a first-round pick for Jimmy. Let's see if we can flip Wiggins for something else now. Because he just did not meet expectations in Miami. The raw box score numbers, they're not terrible. The issue that I had with Wiggins is the fact that he played in 17 out of 33 possible regular season games. So he barely played above 50% of the regular season games possible. He dealt with so many injuries, and we know that's something that the Heat don't really tolerate that much. They want their players to stay on the floor. And then when you watched Andrew Wiggins in the playoffs, he was abysmal. Now, you could argue every single player was bad in that series besides Davion Mitchell, but Wiggins looked terrible. And he just looked almost out of place on the court at times with Miami. He had some big games in those 17 regular season outings, but down the stretch of the year, he was looked upon to be the third option offensively and just didn't look comfortable in that role. Now, maybe he would feel better about things in Miami after a full offseason, but I'm definitely okay moving on from Wiggins if it helps you either improve your roster or create more flexibility in the future. So let's kick it over to the Lakers side of things now with Buha on Wiggins, saying that I know Wiggins has been a popular guy for Lakers Twitter. He is someone that I think among the realistic options, he is someone that would check a lot of boxes for the Lakers. So he's not saying that the Lakers could be are showing interest in Wiggins, but he's just purely speculating about how Wiggins would be an ideal, cheaper trade target for the Lakers to upgrade that roster around Luka Doncic and LeBron James. We know they are also looking for a center, but a 3-and-D wing could be something they try to fit in alongside Reeves, Luka, and LeBron at that little 3 spot on the roster. And the Lakers have some good pieces that I could be interested in for the Miami Heat. They have a lot of good players. I don't think they would be willing to get rid of Austin Reeves, and I would question Reeves' fit next to Herro regardless. But Reeves would be a player I would certainly be intrigued with getting back. But they have some other role players like Jared Vanderbilt, Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent off the bench, Dalton Connect. And I would be fascinated to see what the Lakers would be willing to give up to get Wiggins, who is on a 1+1 contract, which means guaranteed this year, player option next year, at a price that really isn't that high. So here is the trade idea that I ultimately came up with. Would I try to get Dalton Connect in return? I would probably try, but instead I will settle for this. I will just do a Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, and a 2025 second-round pick, which is the 55th overall selection, which is like the 4th or 5th to last pick in this year's draft for Andrew Wiggins. So the pick really isn't that valuable. It's just a nice throw-in for a team in Miami that is really good at finding talent late in the second round or in the undrafted circle. You might say this is a little too less of a return that you'd like for Wiggins. I could understand that, but I actually think there is added benefits to potentially getting Vincent and Hachimura into this roster. So let's talk about it. Last year, Hachimura played 59 games. Gabe Vincent played 72. So Vincent, after just playing 11 the year prior, was able to be on the court more this season for Los Angeles. Could they be two solid additions to Miami? Well, we know Gabe Vincent has familiarity with the Heat, and we know what he brings to the table as Heat fans. He has had a really good career in Miami before he signed with the Lakers, and he was really good in the playoffs for the Heat. But Rui Hachimura would be the best player in return, obviously. You see, he was pretty solid in 59 games last season, shooting 40% from 3, 50% from the field, and averaging 13 a game. that is a pretty valued player who's got really good functional size. And I would label Hachimura not as an elite defender, but I would label him as an above average defender. Is Wiggins a better defensive player? I would say so. But Hachimura could be a better fit for Miami and simply could be coming off of the bench for the Heat rather than in the starting lineup, which could prefer or could ultimately then benefit Miami by having different lineup conversations and combinations. Here's the situation, in my opinion. If the Heat can't land a star, like they can't use Andrew Wiggins' salary and value to acquire a Ja, a Trae Young, a Kevin Durant, or another star slash superstar in the NBA, then I do kind of like the idea of flipping Wiggins to another competitive team that are looking for a 3-and-D missing piece as their fourth, fifth option and getting some expiring contracts, maybe some low-end draft capital, or a young player in return. And I think this package that I threw out there with the Lakers on Wiggins could make a lot of sense. And I'll explain why here in a second. But we have a daily sub battle. Mavs today here at Chat Sports challenged us to a 1v1. So let's take them down. Hit the sub button for daily Heat content, but I'm also a competitor at heart who never likes to lose. Ask my parents. 0 subs for 0 subs. Let's see who ultimately wins this sub battle of the day. All right, reason number 1 why I like this potential trade. You have a lot of lineup versatility bringing Gabe Vincent and Rui Hachimura into the fold. Vincent, who has been in this Heat system in the past, could either be your starting point guard, which I would probably caution against, but he would be a very good backup point guard. Now, is that backup point guard to Davion Mitchell or someone else? I don't know, but I really like Gabe Vincent being your lead point guard off the bench. We've seen him thrive in that role in the past. Hachimura, though, is the one that provides you with so many different options. Because, in my opinion, if you make that trade, you no longer have a starting 3 with Andrew Wiggins out. So who would then fill that void in the front court next to Bam and Khalil Ware? I would like to start Nikola Jovic and then have Rui Hachimura come off the bench as your 6th man. Could Rui play the 3? I think so, but he is better well served as a small ball 4. And I would like Hachimura to come off the bench, and then you have endless front court options of a combination of Jovic, Hachimura, Ware, Rui Hachimura, Jovic, and then Bam, and like you just have so many different combinations throughout the regular season. And if you ultimately keep Nikola Jovic this offseason and don't use him like Wiggins in a trade, I want to start Nikola Jovic to begin next season. I do. I think it would be the best scenario for Miami. And I will say the numbers might actually suggest he is better coming off the bench. When you look at Jovic's 24-25 season, he started 10 games and came off the bench in 36 games, and his efficiency and overall production was better when he was coming off of the bench for the Miami Heat. Something that is also very fascinating with Jovic last year in terms of his disparity of starting games and off the bench games. He actually played more minutes per game as a reserve than as a starter. In the 10 games he started last season, he ended up only playing 19.7 minutes in those contests, while in those 36 games off the bench, he played 26.6 minutes per game. But I do think if you want to get the most out of Jovic long term, I think he needs to be a starter. And I think he showed the ability in the playoff series against the Cavs to guard better than I would have anticipated on the perimeter a little bit. Is he an elite defender? No. Is he even average? That's even a question. But I think if you have him, Ware, and Bam in the front court defensively, you can move Jovic around. You can move Bam around and have Ware be that anchor and rim protector of your defense. You'd have a lot of functional size with Bam at 6'9", Jovic at 6'10", Ware at 7 foot, to where I think that would be a very front court if you ultimately kept him. And if you made that trade, I would prefer Hachimura to be your ultimate 6th man in his role. All right, let me know your thoughts. Is Nikola Jovic a starter, or would you rather have him come off the bench as a reserve? Type S if he is a starter, in your opinion. Type B if he is a bench player. Let me know your thoughts. Call it down below. Another reason why I really like this deal. The players you get back in for Andrew Wiggins, 2 expiring contracts in Hachimura and Gabe Vincent. And they're pretty good salaries as well. To make it work, the Heat acquire just slightly more than they're giving away. They're acquiring about $1.7 million in salary. But Hachimura's on an expiring $18.2 million deal, and Gabe Vincent's on an expiring $11.5 million contract, which could provide you with a lot of flexibility for the 2026 offseason. How about this, folks? If you did make this trade, and you did not make any other trade this offseason, that's the only trade you make, you would then have potentially $95.4 million in expiring contracts coming off the books. You have the two contracts we showed with Vincent Hachimura. Terry Rozier's $26.6 mil coming off the books. Duncan Robinson's $19.8 coming off the books. Haywood Highsmith coming off the books at $5.6 mil. Kevin Love coming off the books at $4.1 mil. And then Kyle Anderson. He is under contract for 2 years, but the last year of his deal after this year is non-guaranteed, so the Heat can waive him and save $9.6 million. That is a lot of money coming off the books. You want to talk about flexibility? Having $96.4 million in expiring money would provide Miami with the ability to, one, trade for any player and have no worries about financial impact. But also, if there is a really good free agent on the market, which I know it doesn't happen often, but if there were to be a good free agent on the market, you could offer them a max contract. Yes, a full free agent max contract to pair up with Herro and Bam. And when you look at the potential 2026 NBA free agents, the names are pretty good. Damian Lillard's got a player option. Who knows if he opts in? If he gets a wink-wink from Miami, they'd give him 60-plus over a couple of years. Maybe. KD technically would be an unrestricted, although whatever team trades for him probably extends him. Trae Young and Luka Doncic have a player option. Who knows? If things go south in Atlanta, maybe Trae Young opts out. Never know with Luka in LA. I think Reeves has a player option as well. Forgot to add the PO next to him. But Mikal Bridges, Anthony Simons, and De'Aaron Fox. Yes, De'Aaron Fox is an unrestricted free agent. And a quick little sidebar on Fox here. I find the situation in San Antonio fascinating. They traded for him at the trade deadline. They had the number 2 pick. If they take Dylan Harper, who in my opinion is worthy of a first overall selection, and I believe could be an all-star, all-NBA type guard at one point in his career, if they prefer Harper's fit in the Spurs lineup, could they ultimately trade Fox again at the trade deadline before he hits free agency, because he does only have 1 year left on his contract, and say, yeah, we'd rather build around Remby, Stephon Castle, Harper, with them all being on rookie contracts at this point? That is a fascinating development. So I doubt Fox ultimately hits free agency, whether the Spurs trade him and that team that trades for him extends him, or the Spurs just extend him in general. But you would be able to potentially pursue Fox in free agency if he made it to the open market. But as I mentioned, it just doesn't go towards free agency if you had all of that money to work with financially. You would be able to make a big trade in the deadline or at the offseason portion, where you have so much money available to you that you can just make a trade and you can just absorb so much there. Very fascinating kind of added storyline to this if the Heat made a trade like we just showed. And I think the final reason why I like the trade is I think you have a more well-rounded roster. You get a solid wing off the bench in Hachimura, more front court versatility, functional size, as we always like to talk about. You get a true backup point guard, because as of right now, the Heat don't even have one point guard on the roster, with Davion Mitchell being a restricted free agent. Sure, people will make the jokes about Drew Smith, but you don't have anyone with Davion currently a restricted free agent. Vincent would come onto this group, be your projected backup point guard, and that is where you would go into free agency if this trade was made before. Now, I will say this. If this trade actually does come to fruition, I would believe it to happen during the free agency portion of the offseason in early or mid-July. I think it would happen after the draft. But if the Heat wanted that second-round pick that I mentioned, maybe they try to strike a deal if they say Kevin Durant trade becomes official this week, or at the beginning of next week before the draft, and we're just going to end up chalking up this next season. We'll trade right now, maybe to get that second-round pick. All right, so would you make this deal? Type A for accept or type D for decline? I went through the reasons why I think it would be a good decision for Miami if they do not use Wiggins to acquire a star this offseason. Let me know your thoughts, A for accept or D for decline. As always, you can hit me up on social media and Twitter for more around the Miami Heat. And if any trade happens, I will talk about it over there on Twitter and break the news down first before coming over here and going live and making a video here on the channel. So go give me a follow right now at Nic_Rohlff.